I call to order the Finance Committee meeting of April 23rd, 2024 at 6:01 p.m. First item of business is the approval of minutes. I need a motion for the draft minutes of April 9th, 2024 Finance meeting.
I move approval.
We have a motion to approve by Alder Wheeler. Any comments, questions? All in favor of the draft minutes of April 9th, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't believe we have anybody online or in chambers. So we'll move on to item 4, Finance Director Report, which includes the Treasury reports for January, February, and March of 2024. Misty?
Thank you. So, I'll start with the treasurer's reports. So there are the 3 months included in there as staff is catching up now that we're getting through audit and through the rest of the 2023 stuff. In general, things are going as expected, but we are still reinvesting our money in investments that are much higher than what they were a couple years ago. So we're still hitting that 5% mark on our recent CD investments. And otherwise, I will pause if there's questions. Otherwise, I do have a little bit more report.
Just a clarification on the statement you just made.
Yep.
So the rates are higher, but inflation's also been higher. So how has our performance relative to inflation been?
I do not have that information, but I can pull that into a report. No problem. Any other questions? Okay. Other than that, so we'll talk about debt issuance tonight to kick off that process. And then the big news is also CIP. So met with the department heads and the mayor all day today. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind of a day. I'm going through that first draft. The mayor's proposal will come to the council in mid-June. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's an interesting process to get started. That's all I have.
Fantastic. Any questions? Great. We can move on to agenda item 5, review of bills. 5A, detailed review of all checks issued, checks 126763 to 126810 for the period of April 1st to the 15th, 2024, totaling $538,738.54. Questions or comments from the committee? All right, we can move on to agenda item 5B, detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above for the period of April 1st to the 15th, 2024, totaling $466,788.70. Comments or questions? Great. Moving on to 5C, review of P-card transactions for the cycle ending March 6th, 2024, totaling $218,409.82. Questions or comments?
I had one question.
Go for it.
So I saw there was some service for Harley Davidson. I assume that's a police vehicle, and I guess I'm not sure what our total fleet looks like.
Yeah, so because we had CIP this afternoon, the police department does have a motorcycle. I'm not confident if it's a Harley. Chad, do you know? It is a Harley, so that would make sense that would be the PD vehicle. And then once we get to the CIP, the replacement funds all have inventories of all the different equipment that the city has, so that information is available in that document.
Okay. If there is nothing else, we can move on to 5D, detailed review of P-card transactions for $10,000 and above for the cycle ending March 6, 2024, totaling $84,429. Questions, comments? All right, we can move on to our action items. Agenda item 6A, resolution R1124, which is the Synthes uniform contract. We will need a postponement, so I'm going to request a postponement to the next meeting from one of our committee members.
I move to postpone to the next meeting.
And to clarify, I think that's the May 14th meeting. Anything you want to add? Misty, we just need more time for the contract.
Yep, still working through some legal terms.
Great. All in favor of postponing resolution R1124 to the May 14th meeting, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Motion is postponed. Item 6B, resolution R2424, approval of the 2024 to 2028 Parks and Open Space and Recreation Plan. And I think let's start with a discussion, since I know this has been going around. Scott, do you want to go ahead and introduce this?
I certainly can, and actually, we're requesting that this be postponed. Staff, the planning department is still reviewing comments that were received when I went around to the committee, so it isn't ready at this point. So if we could table this, that would be fantastic.
Great. So can I get a motion from the committee to postpone indefinitely for Resolution R 2424?
I move we postpone Resolution R 2424 indefinitely.
Great. Any other questions, concerns about that? All in favor of postponement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Postponed. Thanks, Scott. Next item.
You're welcome.
I need a motion on Resolution R 4424, approval of 2024 spring tree planting.
I move approval.
And I believe we'll throw it to Scott for the spring tree planting.
Yes,
Great.
thank you. This is our spring tree planting plan. We have a total of 262 trees to be planted this spring. The staff did advertise publicly, and we did receive 8 qualified bidders for this work. The lowest bidder was SRB Trees for a total of $62,880, and we have worked with SRB Trees in the past and are satisfied with their work.
Any questions in the committee?
Yeah, Scott, what's the full scope of their obligation? Is it just planting, or do they come back and tend them for a couple of years to get them started?
Well, what they'll do is they'll plant the trees, and we do receive a 1-year warranty. And then Anna and the forestry staff, they'll go out and evaluate the trees, and then they do need to replace them if they don't meet the 1-year warranty. But it's really pretty much a turnkey operation. You know, Anna will go out and locate the place of the planting, but then the SRB will take it from there and augering the hole, providing the stock, and then planting the stock. And like I say, a 1-year guarantee after that.
And what is the typical schedule for planting, Scott?
They'll, as soon as we get it approved here, they'll do it this spring. So if we get it approved tonight, Anna will work with the SRB and we'll get it scheduled and planted as soon as we can. That's for sure.
Great.
Yeah, I think I saw in the packet materials they're supposed to do it between March 1st and June 1st. Is that? I mean, we're almost at May.
That's fair. Hopefully not until June 1st, but we'll ask them to get on it as soon as they possibly can. That's for sure.
Fantastic. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of Resolution R 4424, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Scott. Next item, I need a motion on Resolution R 5924, approving change order number 1 for purchase of 1.5-inch and 2-inch water meters.
I'll move approval on Resolution R 5924.
All right, motion by Alder Jetzer. And can I throw it to Tim?
Thank you. The capital improvement plan includes funds to replace all 1.5-inch and 2-inch low lead meters over a 4-year period. Due to the difficulty of hiring a master plumber for meter replacements, the utility is planning to replace all remaining meters in 2024 with the current master plumber on staff. This resolution approves purchase of 173 Badger E-Series meters, the total remaining 1.5-inch and 2-inch meters needing replacement. This resolution also approves adding 640 additional hours to the LTE master plumber position for an increased cost of $53,190, including wages and benefits. The utility is requesting to use funds from the large meter replacement fund for the additional master plumber hours. There are funds available in the budget for the purchase of the meters and the additional master plumber hours. We're looking for authorization to purchase the additional 173 meters for $184,200, and then also authorize an additional 640 LTE hours for the master plumber at an increased cost of $53,190.
I know you've discussed this before, Tim, but can you remind us why these need to be replaced?
So these are low lead meters. Because they contain the lead, we're replacing them. Otherwise, if they did not have the lead, they would be replaced whenever they die.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thanks for that great summary. All in favor of Resolution R 5924, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, I need a motion motion for Resolution R 6324, authorizing the purchase of 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
I move approval.
Approval by Alder Wheeler. And Tim?
So there are pedestrian and cyclist safety concerns at both the Cannonball Path and South Seminole Highway and Brassica Road and Mizuna Drive intersections. Both locations meet warrants for placement of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon and have had residents' requests for safety enhancements. The Cannonball Path has a similar amount of cyclists and traffic as the Capital City Trail, which already has a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And then the second location, which is the intersection of Brassica Road and Mizuna Drive, is used by children to walk to Forest Edge Elementary School in the Oregon School District, as well as parents have requested an RRFB at this location. The Cannonball Path RRFB will cost $22,929.28. And the Brassica Road and Mizuna Drive RRFB will cost $9,361.60. The reason this one costs less is the school district is chipping in half for the RRFB. Funding is available in CIP number 3450, which is the traffic calming program, and can be redirected towards this purchase for CIP number 3518, the roadway safety improvements. So we're looking for authorization to purchase the 2 RRFBs from TAPCO for installation at the 2 intersections. For a total cost of $32,290.88. Then we're looking to amend the 2024 Capital Projects Fund budget to redirect funds from the traffic calming program to the roadway safety improvements in the amount of $32,300 for the purchase of these 2 RRFBs.
Thanks for the summary. Any questions? Great. Looks like a really good change. I know in Transmission Transit, we learned that the one for the Cannonball Path is going to have an ability to actually estimate that somebody is there, so it can anticipate a biker before they have to actually stop and press the button.
Yeah, it'll be a thermo sensor, and it'll be the first one that the city has. So we'll kind of monitor it and see if this is technology we want to pursue further in the future.
Yeah, that'll be a really interesting experiment. Hopefully it works out well. All in favor of Resolution R 6324, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, I need a motion on Resolution R 7124, awarding fire department engine purchase contract to Reliant Fire Apparatus, Inc.
I'll move approval on R 7124.
Alder Jetzer moves approval. Miss, do you want to get this one started?
Actually, Chief, do you want to hop up? Thank you.
So Resolution 71-24 is the periodic replacement of a fire department engine. The fire department engine purchased through this contract will replace one 2011 Pierce engine, and proceeds from the sale of this engine will be used towards funding for the new apparatus. Proceeds from this sale of the used engine is estimated at a total of $75,000. This resolution includes taking advantage of the 100% prepayment option, even though the equipment isn't expected to be received for 50 to 55 months. This prepayment option is about a 16% discount. While the discount will be offset by the need to borrow the costs early, the bigger advantage is that the purchase would not be subject to any inflationary increases between the date of prepayment and the date the equipment is received. The exact financial benefit of locking in the price now is unknown, but based on other recent equipment purchases, it is likely to be significant. Alternatively, council could approve a $200,000 budget amendment now with potential future amendments needed in the future and not take advantage of the prepayment option. Any increased costs would be funded by additional future borrowing.
Great. So I guess my first question is it typical to have the time horizon be so long for fire engines? Is this just how it works with?
Yeah, so typically we've been finding out over a number of years that a 15-year life cycle is sufficient. We did talk about it in CIP earlier about the increased calls in the city, and that puts more mileage, more engine hours on the engine. So as of right now, we're keeping it at a 15-year life cycle, but also looking into shortening that here in the near future as increased call volumes, are happening year after year.
And then this particular vendor, what other services do they provide with the contract for the purchase of the fire engine? Do they have warranties? Do they have?
Yes. So there are a number of warranties, everything from the chassis to the body, lighting and that. So it's a number of different warranties throughout the vehicle. Even the transmission has a different warranty. So it's at different warranty cycles. So like something might be a 5-year warranty compared to, something else might be a little bit more when it comes to maybe the body itself, as far as the actual, not the chassis, but the body where all the equipment is in. And then paint warranties and such, yes.
Great. Other questions?
I was just going to ask about whether, when it arrives, do we need to paint it? Do we need to put decals on it? What do we need to do besides throw equipment on it to get it ready to go?
All we'll have to do is put equipment on it. It will all come painted with the appropriate decals and lettering that's required per the contract.
Great. Fantastic. If there's no other questions in the committee, I'll go ahead and take a vote on Resolution R7124. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 6G. I need a motion on Resolution R7324, approving an agreement with R.A. Smith for construction-related services for 4th edition to Terravesa.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Wheeler. Tim, you going to introduce this?
The subdivision improvements in the 4th edition to Terravesa include construction of public infrastructure that needs to be inspected by a representative of the city. The city will not have sufficient in-house staff to provide full-time construction observation for the public infrastructure improvements in this plat. The city received proposals for engineering services on February 5th, 2024. A quality-based review of proposals received was conducted by Public Works. R.A. Smith was determined to be the most qualified consultant to provide construction-related services for this plat. Staff has negotiated a not-to-exceed fee of $51,500 for these services as outlined in the agreement. The subdivision improvement agreement specifies that such services are invoiced and paid for by the subdivider. So we're looking for approval of the agreement with R.A. Smith for construction-related services for the 4th edition to Terravesa.
Great. And to clarify, so that means that this cost is billed through to the developers?
Correct. They'll be passed through to the developers.
Got it. Any other questions? Great. All in favor of Resolution R7324, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. All right, next item, 6H. I need a motion on Resolution R7424, approving change order number 1 for 2024 to 2026 Hillside Heights Vegetation Management.
I'll move approval of R7424.
Motion by Alder Jetzer. Tim?
So the city contracted with Field and Stream Restorations in 2020 to provide vegetation management services for the Hillside Heights North Pond through 2023. Native vegetation has been established and is recommended to continue with vegetation management service through 2026 to inhibit growth of invasive plant species and provide additional native seeding in areas with lower native plant density. Proposed work included in this change order will include management of the invasive species, small native seeding efforts, and 1 prescribed burn during the contract time. Total change order price is $8,500 over the 3-year maintenance term. So we're looking for approval for the contract change order number 1 for 2024 through 2026 vegetation management services at the Hillside Heights North Pond.
Fantastic. Any questions from the committee? Great. Yeah, it's a good investment to make sure we get these natives established, because I know it takes some time, but then once they're established, they're in pretty good shape for the future. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. All right. All in favor of Resolution R7424, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, I need a motion on Resolution R7524, approving change order number 1 for 2024 to 2026 Harlan Hills Vegetation Management.
I move approval.
Motion approved by Alder Wheeler. And Tim?
So change order 1 for the 2024-2026 Harlan Hills Vegetation Management. In 2021, the city retained Field and Stream Restorations, LLC, to provide ecological services in this area. Field and Stream Restorations has since successfully established native vegetation at these 2 sites. It is recommended to continue vegetation management services through year 2026 to control the invasive plant populations and increase native plant density. Scope of work included in change order 1 will consist of invasive species control, overseeding efforts, and 1 prescribed burn over the term of the contract. So we're looking for approval for change order number 1 that authorizes an amount of $25,000 from the vegetation management services account.
Great. Any questions? All right, we can go ahead and take it to a vote. All in favor of Resolution R7524, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, I need a motion on Resolution R7624, approving change order number 4 for 2024 to 2026 Renaissance Vegetation Management.
I'll move approval of R7624.
Motion to approve by Alder Jetzer. And Tim, go ahead.
So Field and Stream Restorations, LLC, has been completing vegetation management services at the Renaissance on the Park Pond since 2020. Several washout events have created the need to reestablish native vegetation within the pond. Change order number 4 will extend the existing contract through 2026 and will consist of invasive species control, reseeding efforts, and 1 prescribed burn over the term of the contract. We're looking for approval for change order number 4 that authorizes an amount of $13,000 from the account Vegetation Management Services for the Renaissance on the Park Pond.
Fantastic. Questions?
Yeah, Tim, I noticed this is, the other 2 were change order number 1. This is change order number 4. Was there anything exciting with 1 to 3 there?
No. Do you want to know the specifics on what?
I can jump in real quick. So the detail for change order 1 and 2 is included on page 372 of the packet in the pre-approval form in case you're interested.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. All in favor of Resolution R 7624, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thanks so much, Tim. Next
You're welcome.
item and our last action item, I need a motion on Resolution R 7924, resolution providing for the sale of approximately 9.03 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024A.
I'll move approval.
Motion approved by Alder Wheeler. Just throw this off, Misty.
I will kick it off actually to Greg Johnson from Ellers. He's part of the city's financial advisor team.
Good evening. I'm going to go through the pre-sale report that just kind of summarizes the purpose of this issue. The notes are primarily being issued to fund police facility improvements and secondarily to fund fire equipment purchases. If there are funds remaining from either of these projects, alternatively, proceeds can be used for road improvements. In terms of the total amount that's being borrowed, we've looked at not only what's being funded through these promissory notes, but also looked at the city's multi-year capital improvement plan. In our financial analysis, we include the CIP as it existed, last year with the mayor's capital improvement plan from last year, knowing that it'll be updated again this coming year. So for now, we just kind of showed the multi-year financial plan that kind of shows the projects that are being financed in 2024, which is again the police facility and the fire truck, and then we show the current CIP as it stands presently, and we typically update this analysis every June when the city does its capital or its financial management plan. In terms of the total amount that's being borrowed, it's $9,030,000. The city included some funds in its debt service fund in the 2024 budget that we're using to reduce the amount that's being borrowed. So that's a little over $1.1 million. And then we've included the cost of issuance expense that arrive at the $9,030,000. We show the estimated amortization schedule. The portion that's being financed for the police facility improvements is being amortized over 20 years. The portion that's being issued for the fire equipment is being amortized over 10 years. So we show the estimated interest rates. We are building in a cushion. These rates are higher than what we're presently seeing in market conditions, but we like to be conservative between now and the time that we are selling these notes. In terms of the financial impact, again, this includes not only this proposed borrowings, but illustrating future financings for the capital improvement plan from 2025 through 2032. So all the future debt issuance and this debt issue has been structured to achieve a relatively consistent levy impact on the city's debt service levy. So you'll see that the total levy increase for debt service is about $225,000 per year. So we've structured that so for budgetary purposes, it's a consistent amount, but even with the proposed borrowing for this year's projects, your estimated tax rate for debt service from 2024 to 2025 will drop from $1.01 per thousand to estimated 97 cents per thousand. We also look at the city's general obligation borrowing capacity. Your borrowing limit is 5% of the city's total equalized value. So again, looking at future financings for the capital improvement plan out through 2032, we're projecting that the city's general obligation debt limit will not exceed 28% of your limit, which is a very healthy margin. So you have plenty of borrowing capacity for future capital needs. In terms of the debt issue schedule, where we're at this evening is kind of the beginning of the debt issuance process. There will be a resolution that's on your agenda and also for council consideration, which is just the first step to authorize the issuance of the debt. Then we'll go through the debt issuance process. We're anticipated to have a conference with Moody's, the rating agency. They're actually coming to the city this year to kind of go through a tour. And then we are anticipating selling the notes on May 28th, the regularly scheduled meeting date of the Common Council. We'll be back to present the final sale results that evening. And then the close date the city receives the fund is June 13th. So that kind of gives you the general timeline going forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
And Misty, I wonder if you'd just talk a little, or one of you could talk a little bit about just how debt works in the city. I think people always think of debt kind of in a personal, capacity versus how we operate with debt when we actually issuing bonds is so different from. So for people that are watching and are curious about how debt functions in the city, can you just speak a little generally about how it works?
So in the city's capital improvement plan, the city identifies multiple revenue sources that you use to pay for your capital projects. So as you've heard this evening, there's several projects that you typically fund with cash or non-debt issuance, which is a good financial practice. Not all capital projects require the issuance of debt. So the city has historically done a very good job of limiting debt to projects that are of a larger nature and have a longer useful life. So, the projects that you're primarily funding with this debt issuance are a good example. Police facility improvements have a long useful life, so you're amortizing that debt to kind of match the life of the asset being funded. Same with the fire equipment. It's going to have a longer life, so you're kind of paying that off to match the term of the asset. So really the use of debt kind of interjects some what we call generational equity into the financing project. You have a police station, you have a fire truck. Existing residents are going to benefit from those improvements. Future residents that don't live here yet will also benefit from those improvements. So by amortizing those projects over a number of years, you're kind of spreading out that cost. So current taxpayers and future taxpayers that benefit from the projects will both be contributing towards it. So it's really the issuance of debt is just one aspect of the city's overall funding of its capital projects.
Great. And because we have a AA1 bond rating from Moody's, we typically get pretty favorable interest rates from the people that purchase our bonds. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I was looking at the amortization schedule and wondering if you can say a few words about the varying interest rate and the varying payments by year.
Sure. So when the notes are sold, the city may be paying a different interest rate for each maturity. So the interest rate that you pay in 2025 may be different than the interest rate you pay in 2030. But at the time the notes are sold, the interest rates will be fixed. So the city's interest rates will be locked in on the date of sale, and then we typically build in a call feature into these notes. So at a later date, 7-8 years out into the future, the city has the opportunity to refinance the debt if interest rates are more favorable. If there's cash available, you can make a partial prepayment on the notes. So we typically see different interest rates quoted for different maturities, but the rates will be, it's not a variable rate debt instrument, meaning that once the debt sells, the interest rates can reset based on some benchmark. It will be fixed at the time, but you may pay a different interest rate for each maturity.
Then what about the 2025 1.4 million, the following year only 45,000, and then the numbers go up and down in terms of.
Correct.
I guess I should have been looking at the total instead of the principal, but so why do those numbers fluctuate?
So we're structuring it around your existing debt, and we're also structuring it around future debt. So if we kind of look at your existing debt profile, your levy for debt service, this year, would drop from 2024 to 2025. So we're trying to structure the payments around that existing drop. So we're trying to not only take into account your existing debt, but future debt. So we've structured the debt payments so you have that consistent levy impact increase each year. So we're not seeing wild fluctuations in your debt service levy. So while the amortization schedule for the particular issue may fluctuate, it's really looking at your overall debt profile and future debt to have a total consistent impact year over year.
Anything else from Alder Wheeler? Alder Jetser, anything you want to keep? Good? Great. Very exciting. Thanks so much for the information, and we can go ahead and take this to a vote. All in favor of, let me just pull it up real quick. All in favor of resolution R7924, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next item, 7, announcements. Our next meeting is May 14, 2024. Anything else? Great. And I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:36 p.m. Thanks.